Welcome to the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board interview for School Board in the 8th largest school district in the country, Orange County. These two candidates are vying to fill the seat currently held by Karen Castro-Dentel. District 6 is a compact district in north central Orange County that includes mostly Orlando, some Apopka. Joining us today are Jeni Grieger, a former teacher who sees multiple problems in Orange County schools and has some ideas on how to fix them, and Stephanie Vanos, an attorney who has served on multiple student-oriented boards, including the PACE Center for Girls, and the former chair of the Education Committee for the League of Women Voters of Orange County, and vice president of the Democratic Public Education Caucus of Florida. So we are going to dive right in. The Orange County School District this year received an A rating again. We found that out just recently. This is definitely worth celebrating. There are so many success stories. But what should Orange County do to keep this rating and improve those schools rated C or D? And Ms. Vanos, let's start with you.
Oh, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you all. Yeah, as far as the school grades that have come out, I think there are great things that are happening in all of our Orange County schools right now. I think we have exceptional students. I think we have incredible teachers, and I know every day the incredible work that's being done. I think that the school grades that were just released, that's one measure of what's happening in our schools, but I don't think it's the most important measure, and I don't think it's a very valid measure. I know it's happening every day in our schools. And I think there's cause for celebration for all of the great things that are happening, and there's always room for improvement. I think the number one thing that we can do to improve our schools is to increase the funding that gets to our schools. Because without that funding, we cannot get our students the resources they need, and we cannot pay our teachers what they deserve to be paid and give them really the support that they need. So, when I look at struggling schools, I look at, number one, first to advocate for increased funding. And I also look to going into those communities that have some struggling schools and find out from, community members what they need in order for that school to be successful. I also think it looks like working with local businesses and local nonprofits. And there are so many amazing organizations in our community, working with them to sort of bridge that funding gap. Florida's ranked between 41st and 45th in terms of per pupil funding in the nation. And so, those local orgs and local businesses are really important for funding that and bridging that gap to give our students what they need. And I also think we can work more effectively with our local governments as well. And again, I think we need to make sure that we're supporting our teachers in every school, regardless of what grade the school has. Our teachers need to know that we respect them and that we support them and that we trust them.
Ms. Grieger, same question.
Hey, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate this time, and never in a million years did I ever think I would be doing an interview with the Orlando Sentinel. So thank you guys for reaching out and making it happen. The ratings, as a teacher, I taught for over 10 years, and the ratings, it's so broken up between different percentages. Your lowest 25% have to increase by 50%. And there's just a lot of stuff that isn't really reflective of what is actually going on at the school. For example, my son's school, which is a Title I school, we almost got taken over by the state 2 years ago, and we had to do a lot to get the attention of our school board member and of our school board to really get the focus that we needed. And our middle school faces the same thing. And we got a new principal that came in, and he's done phenomenal things. And we're a C school, but that does not reflect the robust education and experience that our kids are getting at our school. And it's a Title I school, and there's so many wonderful things that are happening, but we do have issues like we have late buses. We have kids that don't even get to school. 3 years ago, we had a teacher shortage. Our library was closed because we couldn't retain teachers. And so while we have these grades, that's great, but I don't think we need to focus on that. One of the things that has come to light is that our literacy rates are so low, And we have got to get our students reading in order to create an environment where all students can thrive. And that's my focus. So I see my time's up.
Thank you so much for that. I have a simple question to follow up. Please assess the performance of School Superintendent Maria Vasquez. And we'll start with Ms. Grieger.
I've gone to town hall meetings with her. I don't sit on boards with her. I'm usually pretty hands-on in our local schools. I think she's done a good job. I think she cares. I think she's got a heart for our kids and our community. And when I ask her questions, she answers very transparently. And I think, she's got a big job. She's running the 8th largest district in the country. And I think she does it with dignity. And I think she treats people well. I think in anything, there's always room for improvement for all of us. But I think she's been doing a good job. So
thank you. Ms. Vanos, same question.
Yeah, I think the superintendent is doing a good job. I'm so looking forward to seeing how she continues her work. I think she made a real effort in the first 100 days of her taking over the district, of really being out in the community and listening to people and what their issues were. Again, I've also been at many town halls with her, but I've also seen her out in the community in many different places and in many different associated with many different community organizations. And I think that's a really, really important part of a superintendent's role. And honestly, an important part of a school board member's role as well. We're not sort of isolated. The schools aren't isolated in a community. We're part of a community, and we should be out there integrating with the community and making sure that we are pooling all of our resources together and getting input from everybody out in the community. Again, I don't think it's fair or reasonable to expect people to necessarily come to our schools with concerns or issues, that we need to really be the ones out there in the community seeking that input and seeking that guidance and seeking, ways to address those concerns. And so that's something that I really admire about our superintendent.
Thank you for that. What more can the district do to retain and recruit teachers? We'll start with Ms. Vanos.
Yeah, I think this is really a really important key issue. I think there are a number of things. I think the number one thing we can do is to continue to advocate at the state level for increased teacher pay. That has to happen. Our teachers are paid 50th in the nation. This is outrageous that we accept this in our state. Our teachers need to be paid better. So we absolutely need to continue that advocacy. Number two, I think we need to decrease the micromanagement of our teachers and treat them as the professionals that they are. Number three, I'd like to see us reduce administrative burdens on teachers so that they're spending less time on those sorts of things and more time developing, trusting relationships with students, which is really so necessary and important for the foundation of learning, and I think sometimes overlooked. I think we need to look at ways to incentivize teachers to stay in the profession. So maybe that looks like providing low cost or free childcare by utilizing empty spaces within our schools that we have or on school property. Maybe that looks like schedule flexibility or allowing teachers to job share. Another idea I have is to look at the skyrocketing healthcare costs and, kind of look outside of the box. I've actually worked with a legislator on developing, legislation that will allow our educators to opt into the, state healthcare system. So looking for things like that. And it really, again, just listening to teachers and making sure that we're hearing what their concerns are and, really working on this climate of fear that our teachers are teaching in right now. And our teachers need to know that when they are doing what's best for our students, that the district supports them and trusts them and has their backs, and that we want them to be able to do their job.
Thank you for that. Ms. Grieger, same question.
I think the first thing is that we can do is we have a system of revolving principals. And as a teacher, I had a principal that was in place for 11 years. And there is something very, very significant about a school culture. But when we have the county moving principals every 2 to 3, 4 years, every single time there is a new principal, they bring in a new system. They take people with them. It creates a vacuum, and then the new principal has to bring in new people, and it's just this constant state of flux. And you don't know what the new principal is going to do. Are they going to keep things the same, or are they going to change? That's a lot to put on a teacher because you're so used to a system, and you can grow when you have a healthy culture. But when we have a revolving door of principals, as a teacher, that places so much burden. And another thing is, if you're a teacher and you have students that come to you that can't read, you can't do your job. And so, there's a lot of factors in why we can't recruit and retain teachers. But one, as a teacher, I didn't go into it for the money. I went into it because I'm passionate about kids. I love kids. I've spent my whole life working with kids. I want them to succeed. I want all students to succeed. And I was able to do that in a strong school because of the culture that had been created and that we could grow on. But when you have students that can't read, you can't teach. So you're going to feel like you can't accomplish your job and you're going to go elsewhere. When you have a revolving door of new systems and procedures, it's going to be so draining for you that it's not going to be worth the work, because you're constantly having to adjust and you can't do what you're called to do. So those are my top two right now.
Thank you for that answer. I wanted to ask you about absent students. According to recent numbers released for the 2021 school year, Orange County had a 27.5% rate of chronically absent children. That's not the worst rate in the state, and it's important to note, of course, that covers a school year when COVID was at its worst. But still, that's a lot of kids spending a lot of time out of school. What more should Orange County do to make sure that children are in school when they're supposed to be? And we'll start with Ms. Grieger.
I think the first thing is we have to get our kids to school on time. So the last number that I could get from our superintendent was we had 540 buses and 225 bus drivers. So you've got students that are chronically late, or they don't even get picked up. So that's the first thing. If they're relying on us to get them to school, we have to have a system, whether that's requiring bus drivers to sign a non-compete so that when we train them, they come and work for OCPS, and then we build partnerships with either, some of these other companies that they go work for where they can do some contract work. But we have to have a system where our students are getting to school. So that's number one, because at the school that my kids go to, we had kids that didn't even show up because there wasn't a bus driver, or they would show up 2 hours late. There's a disconnect there, and these kids they're not buying into the culture because they're not there. There's no cohesiveness. They're shuffled around, and if they get there, great. And if they don't, then they're lost. And so you're not going to create a buy-in from students and from parents if we can't even get our kids to school on time or at all. So that's number one. And then I think the thing goes back to is we have got to get our kids reading. We have to have science-based phonics rooted literacy so that from kindergarten, our kids can learn how to read, and we can have earlier interventions than third grade. Because if they're not caught before third grade, then the likelihood of them getting the supports that they need, it's very, very minimal, and they're never going to catch up. And so they're going to feel a disconnect there, and they're not going to feel like getting to school is worth it. So.
Thank you for that, Ms. Vanos. Same question.
I think if we want to attack chronic absenteeism in our schools, we need to make school a place that students want to be. And I think the number one way we do this is to build a strong culture within schools. And I think a lot of this goes back to what we were talking about with teachers. I've talked to some school counselors, and they've shared with me that students don't have the same connection that they used to have with school when they see their teachers leaving the classroom, sometimes in the middle of the week. And so I think, creating a culture where, again, going back to what I said before about what we need to do to recruit and retain teachers, that helps to build a positive, strong, nurturing climate that is not only good for our students academically, but also makes our schools safer. When we have trusting communities, students are more likely to report dangerous behaviors. They're more likely to seek out guidance before conflicts escalate. So I think the number one thing is to just make school a place that children want to be. And I think another part of that is to make sure that our schools are relevant for our kids and that we are incorporating real world experiences in our schools. We have a lot of, businesses that that want to do more, that want to be more involved in our school, that want to help connect our students to opportunities, expose them to what's possible so that they can have a plan for their future. And I think we need to do a better job of working with those organizations, working with those businesses to provide those real world experiences for our children. Sometimes it's allowing people to come in. Sometimes it's, taking field trips to places and seeing, again, just what's out there. And so I think if we work on, number one, just retaining teachers, creating that culture that's important in our school communities. And then second, just increasing the relevancy of school for all of our children, I think chronic absenteeism will decrease.
Thank you for that. So last year, Orange County dropped its sex education program after the state failed to inform local officials of whether or not the program passed muster. Do you believe this was the correct response? And we'll start with Ms. Vanos.
I am very concerned about our children not getting the sex education that I think they need to have in our schools. I think the failure of the state to approve this program on time was deliberate, and I don't think it's acceptable. I know that many other counties kind of went ahead and did their program without getting approval from the state. I think the number one important thing is to make sure that we are pushing back and that we are contacting the Department of Education. We are sharing information with our parents so that they know, that this curriculum hasn't been approved and that we are, getting a community behind this. I think that, something that is happening at the state level is sort of this attempt to sort of disrupt and cause chaos by and distraction by, not following through, by not approving curriculum. I think it's essential that our kids have a health curriculum. I think that what we need to do now that it hasn't been provided to our fifth graders is we need to make sure that our sixth graders have the curriculum next year so that they are not missing out on some important information.
Thank you. Ms. Grieger, same question.
I think that the state gave the counties a lot of leeway in being able to write their own curriculum and get it approved. And I understand that Orange County has fell through the cracks. I don't know, you never know the inner workings behind the scenes, but I'm not going to blame the state. Orange County chose to write their own curriculum and it never got approved. And I think that we have to own that. I think that makes us reflect on what is it that we're trying to accomplish when we're writing our own when we're writing our own programs. The state has given us the freedom to do that. Did we do this the right way? Did we include all students, or did we have an agenda that we were trying to push? I think we have to focus on what's best for students. And if our curriculum wasn't best for all students and it didn't get approved, then I think that's a message, and we need to pay attention to that, because as a teacher and a place of love for all kids, our goal in education is to create a healthy, meaningful, robust experience, and we have to look out for all students. And if we didn't do that in this curriculum, then it makes sense that it didn't get approved. And I think we have to examine with an open mind what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish through this. And so there you go.
Thank you. And I wanted to follow up with you on something that I picked up when I was looking at your website.
Are you saying me? Are you talking
yes,
to me?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Ms. Grieger, yes.
Okay.
You have, and also earlier in this interview, expressed a lot of concern about reading proficiency in Orange County, saying that too many students are graduating without being considered proficient in reading for a graduate. What do you believe the district should do in more specificity, if you could?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because there are schools in our district that have gone outside of what OCPS, they've partnered with other organizations to bring in phonics rooted literacy programs that are based in decades of science research, brain science, to bring in explicit phonics instruction, phonemic awareness, decoding. We know now, we've known for a long time, that is how students learn how to read. It is not an innate skill. It is a learned skill. You have to learn how to do it. It creates pathways to your brain. And so I think as the standard for OCPS, we need to have, our literacy needs to be rooted in the science of reading. It's been proven. There are school systems that have gone to a science-based program, and their literacy rates are up to 85%. I know at our own school at Lake Silver, we instituted Orton Gillingham, which is kind of the gold standard of, it's been called the gold standard of the science of reading, because you can also reach students with dyslexia, and you can also reach English language learners a lot more effectively than what is in place in OCPS. But for the first time, and we're in a Title I school where kids didn't even open a book before they came to kindergarten, our literacy rate's 85%. In kindergarten after 1 year of using this. And so we have got to make this the standard in our schools so that we can continue to build and thrive instead of expecting students to survive reading failure for 13 years.
Thank you. And obviously, Ms. Vanos, I'd like to get your take on the same question. Do you think that that using some of these programs would be a good idea, or what are your concerns with the reading rate?
Yeah, I think every parent would agree that improving reading rates is important in our district. And I certainly agree with that. The science of reading, has gotten a lot of attention. And I think it's important to know that, the science of reading is not a program, right? It's a culmination of research, and it's also an ongoing research. And it's something that I support. I believe we do need to teach our children to read based on the science of reading research that's out there. Now, there are many approaches to that, right? Orton Gillingham is one approach. And I've seen some great work being done with Orton Gillingham and some amazing groups that are out in our community that are doing great work in our schools. That's one approach to it. I have also talked to experts at the University of Florida and their YouFly program. They also have a curriculum and an interventionist program that is also based on the science of reading, right? So I think we need to look to a variety of programs. I don't think there's a single, magic bullet that solves all problems for all children. But I think it is important that we are using peer-reviewed, evidence-based, structured literacy in our schools. Orange County is doing this right now. They have recognized the importance of the science of reading. They do now have a structured literacy program. And right now the district is actually teaching trainers that will then go into the schools and help the teachers with this. So this kind of structured literacy, we're looking at phonics, we're looking at phonemic awareness and fluency, vocabulary comprehension, all of these parts of the science of reading. We are doing that in our K through 2 in K through 2 in OCPF, and it's something that I absolutely support.
Thank you. Please assess the way Orange County is handling challenges to books and other educational materials. What changes would you recommend? I'll start with Ms. Vanos.
So it's funny, this is actually the number one question I get when I knock people's doors. They are very, very concerned about our district's pulling of books off of the library shelves. This is an issue that I think has caused a lot of concern, rightfully so. We've had these laws passed that have made our district and our teachers afraid to have books on shelves, books that have been there for years and years. I think this is a complete distraction. I think we have real issues, real problems that we can focus on. And, spending hours and hours of time and taxpayer funds talking about whether To Kill a Mockingbird belongs on the shelves is a ridiculous waste of time and money. Our district, I think, is doing the best that it can in terms of, having the community review boards. I do not think that school board members should be working behind the scenes to get books pulled by directly contacting principals and sort of using fear-based tactics to make people pull books off of our shelves. I think it's important that we are really keep our students' best interests in mind. Our students deserve to have access to a wide variety of books on a wide variety of topics by a wide variety of authors. And I think we need to fight really hard to protect access to books. Listen, nobody wants, pornography in our schools, and there is no pornography in our schools. I think the number one thing we need to do is to trust our media specialists. They are trained they are trained to curate books. They are trained to, make sure that the books in our libraries are good for our students, and they are trained to help students find the right books that support their interests and their needs. And so I think we need to really just trust our media specialists to do their jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Grieger, same question.
I think around this whole topic, it's interesting because when all of this was going on around our country and there was news, our library was closed because we couldn't keep teachers, and our media specialists had to go teach 4th grade. So, so then I kind of was able to look at it from 30,000 feet and kind of figured out how, there were a couple books that did get removed. I looked on the OCP West website. I think one of them was Blankets, and that was that book should never be in our libraries. But To Kill a Mockingbird, that is recommended reading, and that has never been removed. That is a narrative that has been pushed, that has politicized something, unfortunately, and that is heartbreaking because we are talking about kids. Yes, we want diverse representation that is age appropriate in our schools. And what started to happen was these book companies, how they do it is they send these stacks of books to media specialists and they go through them. So sure, a media specialist, they're wonderful, but they can miss something. And they're probably not reading every single book when they get a stack of 100 books. And so I think we do have to have accountability. And there's nothing wrong with transparency if we are doing what is best for our kids. I am not for banning books at all. I think we should have a variety of topics that are age appropriate by different authors in our schools, 100%. And I don't like that this has been so politicized. And you can go on the OCPS website and you can see, I think there's been maybe 6 books pulled. And if you look at them, I mean, it's about children getting raped, and it's about, those books shouldn't be in our schools. And if you want those in our school, then that is not necessary in education. As a teacher, I can always find something that is age appropriate to teach my kids. And so I don't like the narrative that's pushed around it. I am for books. I am for kids reading books. And I think we need to protect our children from the political arena in this area.
Thank you. Should the school board find a legal way to sign over its interest in the property it owns in Eatonville that was the former site of the Hungerford School?
And are you saying give it back to Eatonville or give it to, yes, 100%.
Right, sign over its interest in the property, yes.
I think 100% we need to give that back to Eatonville. It was given to the school board to build a school. The school closed down, and then the county won't return it. And it's the people of Eatonville. That is a historic, sacred town, and we 100% need to return that. We need to be in the business of serving our communities, and there's no longer a school there. And we need to give it back to the people of Eatonville have a vision for it. They have a plan for it. And I think it's theirs, and they need to have it.
Thank you. Ms. Vanos?
Yes, I also support returning the land to Eatonville, and particularly to the city of Eatonville and the elected officials in the city, so that they can decide how best to utilize the property.
We have so much more that we'd love to ask you, and we have just run out of time. So I wanted to go ahead and remind our readers, the Sentinel will be making an endorsement in this race, but we don't expect you to just take our word for it. We want you to take a look at the web presence for both of these candidates. Both of them have websites, social media presences, and a wealth of information out there, including our excellent coverage of this race. So take a look at them both, decide who best suits your values as a potential school board member, and make sure that you vote on or before August 20th for your choice in this district. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to start with Ms. Grieger for a closing statement.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. This was great. I never planned on running for school board. I never planned on running for anything. But I couldn't unsee what I saw when we were fighting to keep our school from getting taken over the state. I've been super hands-on, elbows deep on the front lines of education for over 20 years. both in the classroom and as an advocate for our school and our community. And I've got, there's some, you cannot replace classroom experience with anything else. And I have that, and I've been on the front lines. I've served in so many capacities, and I bring such a unique experience to the school board and all of the different roles that I've filled. And my hope is that you will hear me, that you will read about me. Yes, make me earn it for sure. But don't be distracted by the nasty things that are said, by the, the political climate where people want to make this about politics. This is about students. This is about kids. This should never be about politics. It should never be about a side. This is a nonpartisan race. And I have stayed in that lane. I have stayed in the lane of nonpartisan because I am fighting for children. I am fighting for teachers. I am fighting for communities. And I am the best person for this job, and I will support all people, not just one side. I will support everyone, as I have always done in the classroom and out. So vote for Jeni, August 20th.
Thank you so much. Ms. Vanos, you could close us out.
Yep. So Stephanie Vanos, running for Orange County School Board District 6. I'm running because I believe we need knowledgeable, rational people on our school board and people who put students first. I'm a mom of 3 daughters in Orange County Public School. I'm a lawyer, and I've spent the last 10 years as a volunteer public education advocate. I am running because I care. I see what is happening to public education, and there's a lot at stake right now. And I think it is so important that we are electing people who can see the big picture, but who also can see and understand the needs of our community, and whose values when it comes to public education really reflect the values of our community. I'm running to ensure that every neighborhood has a safe, high quality school, and that we're working with communities to achieve that. I'm running because I believe that each and every one of our students deserves to feel welcomed and supported at school, because if it's students' basic emotional needs are not met, they're not learning. I'm running because I believe our teachers are professionals, and they deserve to be treated as professionals, and they deserve to restore respect and support for them. And finally, just to keep the focus on what students and parents actually care about in our schools. I will be ready on day 1 to be your advocate, your connector, and your problem solver on the Orange County School Board.
Thank you so much. This has been really enjoyable spending time getting to know you both.